up exactly at 6, whatever, the one slaps me in the face.
Yeah, they love it.
It's trying to herd them in at night is a daily miracle. I only really let them out right now on the weekends because at night they get a little feisty and there's another cat that comes around and they start to fight with that other cat. So if they're inside, but if the orange one comes by or the gray one, Carl, that you could see in the background, they both weren't mine. One was a family that's going to Fiji, but what happened was they got mongoose to get rid of the snakes. So they got
Oh,
rid of the snakes, and now they're killing the cats.
love the name. Wasn't it Ricky Tikki Tavi back in my day? They used to have the was the mongoose that slayed snakes.
I remember that.
Ricky
Ricky
Tikki
Tiffy. I
Tavi.
remember that.
That's it.
Yeah. I
So I
but the cat's
fired
name
us
is
up.
Pishu. Okay.
Oh, Pichu. We're going live here. Oops, somebody's popped into the room here. But I hopefully you'll be able to see this, Chris, where you're at as I show our screen here. But I'm going to go through some of the teams that I've been able to put together so far, and we can have some comments and take a look at it. But I'll just start off and welcome it. I appreciate Chris taking the time to come on here because this is the best person to explain the thoughts behind this project because I did not want to do it. I'm just going to be flat out honest. My brain had two or three other projects in mind in trying to take a lot of the stuff I've done for action into Madden or maybe Maximum Football that's been put off or Pro Strategy, looking at like 5 year slices. And Chris kept on me. He didn't keep on me too about two or three times saying this is really a project we need because there's nothing out there that has state of birth for football. So,
Yeah.
Chris, where did this idea come? I mean, give us a little bit on where this came from and why you were so passionate about this being a project that we need to do.
Yeah, well, I kind of stole it from the Australians. The Australians, their biggest sporting event of the year is the state of origin. And they have something called rugby league, which is different than rugby union. Rugby union's the one you see on TV, the World Cup, where
Yeah.
everybody smashes into each other and they have these big rucks. Rugby league is looks a lot like American football, and it's scary. It's American football without pads. The only difference is you get 5 downs for the full field. There are no first downs. And when you get tackled, you roll the ball backwards and then you start another play. And it's like 3 seconds between plays. And it's very interesting, the game, but they have a state of origin. And my one buddy went down and saw it. He's a trainer in Saxonburg at Knock High School, and John Geist, and he saw it and he brought back pictures. I'm like, oh my goodness. Then that got me thinking. I said, well, it got me a lot of things going on in my head, but I thought my first thought was, I wonder if we had an Olympics for the United States and every state had a team. I wonder with the birth rate and all that, who would be a better state? Because California has all the people, but it doesn't mean that they have all the sports. I mean, one of the biggest countries on earth is India, 1.4 billion people, and their soccer team is lower 100s. They're like 186 or 187 for the ranking. China's like 80 or 90th. They're not even dreaming of a World Cup. So, so that's the one thing we hear about a few, but you never know. And then I thought to myself, hey, what about this? Well, it's difficult because I went into Pro Football Reference, and sometimes it's tough. You got to hit it a certain way to get this the what do you call that? The names of birthplaces.
Hmm.
And because you can get colleges real easy, but I don't want college. College is where they chose to go. We want to talk about birthplace and where they're from. If you did an all NBA team, North Dakota is surprisingly strong with people like Phil Jackson. And even that was going through the back of my mind. Like, I wonder if there's a state that's really a diamond in a rough that nobody talks about. And I started thinking and thinking and thinking. And then when I saw you were doing a project, I'm like, hey, why not a state of origin? And why not a state of origin? Go to their states, because everybody always talks about, oh, you Louisiana people, that's an easy state. Oh, you Texas. Oh, you Oklahoma people. Oh, you the. And I thought, all right, well, let's settle this. You got Action PC, which is a great thing, and I like Pro Strategy Football too. I do. I'm not promoting one or another, but we have things out there that can help settle these arguments, and they're fun. Or you could take your favorite state and play it. And I thought to myself, I started looking and I saw they did one in baseball for Action PC. And I'm like, oh, all right. And everybody had so much fun on it on Beatles Eternally channel. And then it just died and went away because, they have the Shanks League, the McGreevy League, and all that, player oriented. But people had it and people were going absolutely ballistic. They're like, hey, I'm Pennsylvania, Minnesota, Ohio. And I felt that football would be great, not only because of the state, but the different combinations within each state. You had the best saying in the world. You might have 50 Hall of Famers, but you can only play 11 people at once. It's not like basketball where 5 quarterbacks can play at once.
Yep.
Maybe in basketball, 2 centers play or 3 guards. But in football, yeah, you got to, who do you play and with what combination?
That's a good point. The other thing I've noticed since I've been talking about this in the community is when I've done some things to show the rosters, I've had people immediately, it seems like we're always trying to equal the playing field. For example, Texas and California are huge. I've had people recommend, and it's a good recommendation, they're so big with over 2,600 players. Couldn't we split it in half? In other words, could there be a North and Southern California, right? And then in my brain, I thought, yeah, that's a good idea. Then yesterday I thought, well, how fair is that? I mean, we split it in half, then it's really not Texas, right? It's East and West Texas. And then where do I draw the line in the middle of that? And shouldn't it be that some states are smaller, but still want to go be the David that battles the Goliath? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is the idea to split up regions of the country evenly, or to actually have the state element there, which means some states are the underdog, some states are small, and the uniqueness of maybe they don't have a great pool of quarterbacks, but maybe they just happen to have a couple really stud defensive linemen. So it really represents football. That's what I got to thinking, right? It represents some of the football teams that don't
Yeah.
have quality at every position.
Yeah, and I agree. When you look at the actual World Cup, you don't play Northern England versus Western France. Look at France. They are the country spread out among the most time zones in the world. France is 12, Russia has 11, and then you start going along. France's longest border that they share is with Brazil. People don't realize that because French Guiana is an actual state in South America. It's a state. It's like our Hawaii, so they don't do that. And one of the neat things is you have a country like Croatia with 3 million people getting the right starting 11 going to a World Cup final and beating England in the semifinals. So I like the fact it's one. And now if you want to make teams like Deseret, where it's the old the state that they wanted to make out west, Deseret, where it's like Utah, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, all that. Yeah, Deseret has a cultural identity to it. So making those states together are good. The Four Corners, they have a cultural identity to them. Yeah, they're different, but you know what? They have a cultural identity. So they're like a state in itself. New England is, yes, each state is different, but they have a cultural identity to them. But if you take Texas and go North Texas, then that kind of is people like, well, how would Texas do against California? How would, like, one of your great underdog states that you have is Louisiana. Like, they can win it all. I looked at that roster. They can win it all. They have offensive line, defensive line. They can do it. They have Super Bowl champions at quarterback that aren't even on the roster. They're good. They're very good. I even think, and this is my advocation, you might get a headache after I advocate this. This might be more work. I like the fact of an international team because I think
No,
you're going
my
to be
brain's already there,
surprised.
Chris. You're not giving any more angst than I already have to suffer through. I've thought about it.
All right. Yeah, it's something I think to consider because you have two Super Bowl MVPs who weren't born in the US and Mark Rippon, who was you're going to get a lot of Canadians there. Mark Rippon and Heinz Ward from South Korea. So you had that one great Colts receiver born in Haiti. You have a lot of offensive linemen born in Samoa. Are they Hall of Famers? No. Are they a team that when we run the roster might get a win or maybe a tie? Maybe. Will they be a little competitive against the minor teams? Yeah. Will it surprise us? Maybe. Maybe. I just don't know what kind of a
Now,
field. Maybe Wembley Stadium.
you're bringing up a great point about the identity because right away my brain went to the normal thinking we have here, right? Which is, oh wow, we could have a North and California and all that. Then yesterday, as I thought about, it, I'm like, no, we just need to keep that state identity. Somebody brought up a good point. I think because of the size, I believe I don't have. I'll have to check. I don't know if you can contain your own team with the pool of players, you should have a team. Now, I got to thinking about, do I take West Virginia if they don't sustain their entire team, move it into Virginia, or do I move it next door to Kentucky, which could really use the players? Somebody brought up the Hatfield and McCoys. So culturally, those two don't want to be together. So I've got some
Whoa.
thoughts about there, right? Okay, so maybe
Um,
if I combine them, I put West Virginia with Virginia if I had to combine that because they both share the
no,
same
you
name.
don't want to put West Virginia with Virginia. You don't want to do that. I visited Mingo County where the Hatfield and McCoys actually happened. I used to know Nell Hatfield, who's a direct descendant. She was the in Mingo, it was Williamson Middle School was hiring, and she was the HR director down there. It's now Mingo Central High School, and she was the HR director. She now passed away. She's the West Virginia. She's the Hatfields of West Virginia, and the McCoys are Kentucky. But that was over a pig. Both of them were Appalachian. If you go, remember, West Virginia pulled away from Virginia, and they did it because of slavery. And they did it because of a lot of gunpowder and a lot of that. And people down there have the best memories ever, ever of anybody. If you're 3 years old and you say something wrong when you're 83, people remember it. So I would actually put West Virginia and Kentucky into one because the Appalachian culture.
That's what I
Um,
was thinking.
yeah, it's funny because John Denver sings Country Road, but he never says one place in West Virginia. Shenandoah Valley's in Virginia. Blue Ridge Mountains are in Virginia. Hey, what about Clay County? What about all that? So I would say when it comes to if you're looking identity, having an Appalachia with West Virginia, Kentucky, I know Tennessee can hold their own. I agree with you. You only merge if you can't get 43. And I would put 43 as a tournament roster. I would make these as tournament roster. So 43. So the best 43, I know the positions have to matter. But it's like, if they can field 43, like I know Nebraska can, they're not going to be the best, but they're going to be Nebraska. Um,
Yeah,
so if
we're going to have more teams than I originally thought, Chris, because I am going to go back, and you got to realize I also want to make sure that I didn't put conditions on this project, meaning all this work I'm doing for you, by the way. Well, it's for me too. I enjoy this. It's not just for you. It's
well, thank
it
you.
is I am I want everybody to know I could easily save a lot of time by grabbing seasons that already exist within action and letting that season be the representation for the player. I don't like that in any of my projects per se. That's why I wanted this to be their best three combined because I can take this pool I'm creating broken up by states and I'm a long way towards my all-time greats approach using the best three from their career. I'm going to
Yeah,
go
I
back
think
and rethink it for the smaller states because I may have in my frame of mind ruled out. So what I may do is keep that same approach, but for some of these teams that maybe need a marginal backup or whatever, I may come in and change that way of thinking, and maybe grab somebody that maybe played a year or two, but they can have a few games there to help that state fill out a full roster. So I'm going to go back and rescreen all of the stuff that I did so far on the preliminary rosters.
Yeah, I think that will mimic I think that'll mimic what happens in real life at these tournaments. When you go into like a 32 team tournament, you might have more than 32. And what I'll do is I'll make qualifiers like in real life. So you'll see
Yeah.
your teams being very competitive at the beginning. It won't be like, hey, here's Rhode Island versus California. Hey, good luck there, buddy. Um, Instead of just starting out like that, it might be, if you fill in all the things, it might be the Dakotas or North Dakota. It might be like South Dakota versus like Idaho in a qualifier. And then you do the qualifiers and then you work your way up. Right now, I'm doing a project with 2007, the college football. But all I'm doing is I'm not broadcasting anything except for talking about but the qualifier. I let the computer, I'll seed the teams because we know Texas, California, Pennsylvania, we know that. But when it comes to the smaller states, when it comes to, well, what I did was I kind of seeded the college teams. I let the computer try and select the teams as much as possible. Because if I do my own bias, I'm doing my own projection rather than letting the computer just playing the games. And since these aren't actual people getting hurt, and I don't actually need to pay any, well, I mean, I should pay you, but I don't have to pay anybody. I could run them to death. I could play 1,000 games in a night. So that's what I'm doing at the college football
Yeah.
thing. And what it's doing is all those top 25 teams, it's showing the fallacy of human voting. So what it is right now is if I were to stuck to the seeding, like all the top 25 teams and put them in a tournament or whatever, I mean, we got maybe about 5 of those 25 teams that aren't even qualifying yet for the final stage. And it's because that stepladder system, they think you're good in the beginning, they put you on a pole. And then what happens is if you win, you move up, you lose, you move down, but there was no basis to put you in that pole in the first place. So that's how BYU wins it all in 84 is they beat number 3 Pitt, but Pitt was terrible that year. They had a losing record. So Pitt was actually a bad team in turmoil. And just because BYU beat Pitt in the beginning, they used that victory over a bad football team that at the time was ranked without evidence, and they won a national title. And that's bad. So I'm like, all right, let the computer do most of the let them do most of the like the simulating and all that.
Hmm.
That way it's not my brain, it's the computer that's doing it, and it's your input. Your it's your stuff that you put into the mods and everything to that effect. And plus, too, people want to see games. They don't want to see my brain. They want to see the games
Yeah.
played. Yeah, they want to
Yeah.
see Ohio versus Pennsylvania, which I'm see for me, I'm
Mhm.
thinking about maybe regionally grouping the people for the tournament because I'm thinking eight divisions of 4, you play everybody once home and once away. And I think it would be cool to seed them, but keep them as regional as I can. That way you get, because people want to see Ohio and Pennsylvania. They don't necessarily want to see the best. They want to see the best in the region. Louisiana versus Arkansas, Oklahoma versus Kansas. They want to see those. So I want to maybe I'll put Texas in. You have the big team, and then you have the rest of the teams. You kind of seed it that way. So you don't have Texas and California in the same division and be
Well,
like,
let's talk about pool play because, a lot of times I can tell you this being an American, I'm thinking right away with having season, even if it's a short season, then playoffs.
yeah,
We don't approach it mentally around trying to set up pools. So
I
let's
love
say when
pools.
I'm done, I don't have 50 teams because I don't think I will, but let's say I've got 40 or
Yeah,
42 teams. how would you then take that, whatever, because you're not concerned with the exact number. You've never told me. I know you'd love to get at least 32, and you're going to get that, but you've never said, Steve, I
Yeah.
either have to have 32 or 64 or whatever.
I'd love to have a I'd love to have what they call an exponential power. You know, they always call it 248, 16, 32, 64, something like that. For those that are used to season and what they do is they call it, I love to do a pool play. But when you do pool play, you got to worry about the AI because the AI is not aware of our own stipulations on who moves on. So when you do AI and you do a pool play type thing, um, what you have to do is you have to make the rules so the computer can't lose a game by being reasonable. And what I mean is this: if I need a win to move on, and I'm down 21-14 and I score a touchdown, the AI is going to kick the extra point. And in pool play, you always tie. You don't, because that'll screw it up if you play overtime. Then all of a sudden, you screw up the point differential, and that's bad. You don't want to do that. So, what you do is if you're down 21-14 and you need a win to move on to the next round of the playoffs, if you score, you need to go for two. But the AI inside doesn't know that. So, they're going to go kick the extra point. So what you do is you take off the 2-point conversion and you take out overtime in pool play. And you have ties and no 2-point conversions. It's different because what you do is you play the pools, one home, one away. So that's 6 games. It's like the Champions League in Europe. And then what you do is you play the knockout phase. So the top 2, and then you put them in a knockout, and that's your bracket where you do allow 2-point conversions. Scores don't matter. It's the higher score moves on. That's it. You don't have to worry about point differential or anything else. You just win and move on. So then you allow the 2-point conversions. You allow overtime because you need a winner.
That's nice. And then you
But
can go in there and
play,
tweak that rule set. That's what's nice. Pool play has its
yeah,
own
I know.
rules. Makes it good. And action's very easy with that.
They are. And I'm also thinking about, with this tournament, field goal rules. When you have pool play, it's a lot like the Rugby World Cup is going on right now. You want the problem with the Soccer World Cup, and they had to redesign it, was the fact that they had for the next tournament 48 teams. But what they did was they had 16 groups of 3 teams. And then what it was your top 2 go on to a 30. But the problem is in soccer, you don't really get to score. Like there could be literally a group where everybody's 0-0 because you only, instead of 6 group games total within a group, you're now only playing 3. So now all of a sudden, what the hell do? You flip a coin? They actually have that in the World Cup tiebreaker. It's called drawing of lots.
Oh.
Who the hell wants to practice your whole life for a coin flip? Go to Las Vegas and go to the National Coin Flip Convention.
It's crazy.
So what I want to do is move up the field goals to reward offenses that can get down to the 30, 35-yard line in pool play. That way you get better teams winning because they have more chances. If I put the field goals back, you could have a couple games where they get down to the 30, 20 missed field goals, and now all of a sudden we have ties in statistics. When you take away the 2-point conversion, it's very difficult to go to overtime in football because the combinations are very, very difficult. Once somebody scores a 7 and the other person hits a 3 and both scores are in the 20s, you don't have the 2-point conversion to kind of even things out. So if it's 28-20 and I score, it's 28-27 now. I don't have a chance for that 2-point conversion to tie it up. 2-point conversion, you can always do things to get it back on track. So that's why I'm doing the rule set that way, is to let the teams more scoring opportunities because you want to determine the better defense. Actually, It determines the better defenses because it determines which defenses don't allow the other team across midfield. That's everybody thinks it's a scoring thing. It's actually a defensive thing
Mm.
where you keep the other team from being over midfield so they don't have to worry. So that's a huge thing. And I think that moving the goalposts up and making them live field goals is very big.
Oh, that's awesome. I was digging into the rule set, and I don't know if you can see the screen, but I've got the roster up for the Pennsylvania team. Now,
I
I'm
can't right now. Can you
oh yeah. So
can you
so one thing I can tell you right here we're looking at is I've got now this is the depth they have at quarterback. So to your point, you want 43 man rosters, and I'll probably let the computer and then do a little bit of tweaking when I give these to you, kind of drill them down, and then you can figure out which ones are active, because there's so many combinations here from a strategy standpoint. But we got Matt Ryan. How does that stand out to you as a quarterback for Pennsylvania over Marino?
Matt Ryan's if Marino's tough. Marino was called by Joe Montana last week, actually. He goes, there's the best ever and the greatest ever. And this is what Montana said. He said, the greatest ever is going to have the rings. But when you're talking about the best ever, you're talking about a pure athlete, what they could do. And he goes, Marino by far was the best ever quarterback ever to be there. His release,
Oh
his
yeah.
way he reads defenses, the way he can throw, the way he does stuff, that was better than everybody else. He had a great scheme, yes, in 84 and later on. But if you're talking about pure physical ability, he's the best. And I think when I put in alternate reality mode, and they take a look at physical attributes to this rather than trying to equal stats, which I always thought,
Yep.
excuse my language. Is this a family rated show?
Oh, no.
Okay. Which I always thought was
No.
bullshit anyway, because stats are so variable. Because if I have two muddy games in the 1970s, you're not going to have passing stats that are any good. Meanwhile, you're Fran Tarkton and 47,003 passing yards. And all of a sudden he plays at the Met in the snow. I mean, it's like, come on. You're going to,
Yep.
well, what if then you must have those same weather? You must have the same conditions. And also, too, what if my kick returner fumbles twice and now I'm down 14-0? And all of a sudden I'm throwing the ball a heck of a lot more. I mean, Drew
Yeah,
Bledsoe
in
has
desperate
the
situations, right? You're throwing from
yeah,
behind. Yeah, it changes conditions.
it
Um,
does. And you can't meet stats. Stats can give you attributes, which you
yes.
go. And plus, too, we're doing something that's fantasy. Like Dan Marino's not throwing against Ty Law.
It's standing
Uh,
out to me, Chris, with our even with the Shanks League and all the other stuff. I'm getting to see where, and the game gives you great things for the under the hood engine look, right? Like analysis tools, like this pitcher versus this batter, or this down, or whatever. But alternate reality, it keeps them within a realm of realism. So for folks that don't know in
yeah.
action, they've got that. And what it does is it's going to look at their stats and their attributes and how they're going to play in the game, and then secretly it either keeps them at that range, or it kicks them up a little, or it might kick them down a little to emulate somebody having. If you look at years that players have, they don't have the same year every year, do they? There's always some movement, right? And with some of the greater ones, that movement is a little bit more normalized than this kind of stuff. So I'm getting more interested in doing that. Now, if I pull up, I know you can't see this, but one of the best things about Action is the ERA plus. So let's go to Ryan, because I've built them, and they are built per a season that they
Are
come
you on
from.
YouTube right now,
I
or
am
can
I
they
am on
see it on
YouTube. You
YouTube?
bet. You bet you can see
Okay.
it. If you can fire up
All right.
YouTube
So
and
what
just
I'm
mute
going to
it,
do is pull up YouTube right now.
okay? Go to my channel
I'll
and you
pull
should
it
be able to
up
see
and
it.
then I'll there it is. I'll mute it so you don't hear that weird sort
Yep.
of background. There we go. I see Matt Ryan quarterback right there. So if
So
I'm a little bit delayed on the different things, let me know, but I see it.
now here's what's
I see it
awesome.
here.
And for me with the quarterback, I'm looking at how they're going to perform. Completion percentage relative to era, interception rate, And then to some degree, right, how many like the yards per attempt or completion, because that shows whether they're dumping off shorter, easier stuff or they're taking a
Yeah.
riskier throw. So right here in this ERA plus, you can see Matt Ryan. Now he's been era adjusted. His pass completion is 109. Let's look at Marino, 112, because it's looking at what Marino did in his era and that style, and it's doing the same for Ryan, and now it's bringing him in to where you can more evenly compare them. Let's look at Montana, 121. I mean, Montana, because of the style, if anybody remembers that they ran, was very completion percentage oriented types of passes. So here's
Oh yeah.
Kelly, 108. So 108 would be 8%. Hundreds of the baseline, like 8% over average for his era. Namath, not surprising, he's 1% under. Namath was a down the field guy,
Yeah, it was.
and he had
They
a lot of
the
picks. So
Yeah,
this is a
well,
great
back
play.
then it's like that's why you can't just do pure stats. You got to do alternate reality. George Blanda from Uniontown. Um with Namath, if you put him in today's rules, if you put him in today's, he would throw for 5,000 yards every year because he wouldn't be touched. But back then, passing was really hard to do because of the rules. You could jam
Yep.
everybody down the field. You could deck somebody right before the ball's thrown, the Mel Blount rule.
Mm-hmm.
Plus two. So if you were even with your touchdowns and interceptions, that was considered really good. So you can't put Joe Namath in today's rules and say, oh, well, Joe Namath should have more interceptions because in real life, no, you put him in today's rules, he should have like 3 interceptions and like 40 touchdown passes. His long ball under that kind of pressure was phenomenal. It was really good. Yeah, look at those quarterbacks.
Oh yeah. And
And
what do
you're
you think of the
saying,
quarterback? So yeah, it's deep,
let's see.
right?
It is. Are there any there's one Super Bowl winner you're missing, and you probably will go all night and bang your head if you look at that list. There's one Super Bowl missing quarterback, and do you know who that is from
No,
Pennsylvania?
please tell
From
me.
Pitts. It is Jeff Hostetler from Cochranton.
Oh
He is from
wow.
near midfield, near the Ohio border. Jeff Hostetler then went to West Virginia. He was in the New York Giants as a wide receiver. And then he was a quarterback for West Virginia. And then he was a wide receiver for the Giants. Yeah, I think he had their longest touchdown catch ever or something like that. He held a wide receiver record. And then he became their backup quarterback and then their quarterback. He was that good of an athlete, he had to do something. And they did.
Well, you can see that's where are we going to put him on this roster, right? I mean, and that's the problem we get into with some of these states that are deep at position is, wow. I mean, we could add him to this roster, but it would be another person we have to hit the inactive button on.
Yeah. What I do, what I will do is I'll let the every week I'm gonna the auto reorder them all so the computer can make adjustments every week. Let the computer, because there'll be states and combinations in the computer after a few things. It'll figure it out. It'll figure it out. And then that's going to be really awesome to see. Like, I think with the wide receivers of Pennsylvania, which are good, if you want to
Let's
click
take a
on
look
them
at
for
him.
a quick second, the
You got
running backs are
Lenny
phenomenal.
Moore, who was a running back and receiver, right out of the backfield there.
Oh, Penn State. Yeah, Lenny Moore. And so wide receiver, you have Herman Moore, Marvin Harrison. I was at Brendan Marshall, Andre Reed from Kutztown, Fred Biletnikoff from Erie, Mike Ditka, Christensen, Tucker. Yeah, you have a lot of possession receivers. I would say Joe Montana, if I'm them, because Montana's going to throw that 3 to 7 yard out, and he's going to be the most dangerous pass in football is that out towards the sideline. If you can complete it, you can't stop it. But if you underthrow it, it's gone for 6 the other way.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is what Joe Montana did the best. Like, my God, he was unbelievable doing that. With them, I would probably pick Joe Montana. Unitas is good. Unitas is absolutely, I think, one of the most underrated football players there is, because you never hear Unitas's name, but in an era
You
where
know,
nobody
look
threw
at
the
this
ball.
era. Look at this era. Yards per completion. This is a great stat here to show you the style. Look at Namath, 15.7. That's down the field passing. This is per
Oh, yeah.
completion. Blanda, Unitas, different style. Look at Ryan. By the time in the modern day, it's down to 11.9 per completion, right? So that is a big. You
Yeah.
can kind of see that number come down over time.
Yeah. That's, you could see it, but also, too, look at Unitas. He's second.
Oh yeah.
Um, So he's pretty good. That is my cat, Carl, in the background. Both of my cats were rescues off of the street. So when they got Carl, when he was 1 month old or whatever, he was just literally skin and bones. And now the family that rescued him, they're going to be leaving here in a year. They only want 2 cats. So I took in Carl and the other one. So if you hear a lot of meowing, that's why. So sorry about that
No,
in
there's no
advance, the
problem. I've got
meowing.
dogs here that are just at peace right now, but that's always a good thing. You know, you mentioned, so this we can go through here since you've got the a real big background into Pennsylvania. Let's look at the offensive linemen. And the S indicates starters, meaning I went ahead and let the computer do a depth chart to kind of see who they were going to put out here, and I did some test games. But
Okay.
you can see here we've got good offensive. Russ Grimm from the Hogs is there.
Yeah. You got one of the Saul brothers. Is that the Rams
It
guy?
is. It's
Yeah, it is the
Rich.
Sam. Yeah, there's Rich and there's one. They're both
Ron.
from Butler County.
Yep.
Yeah, literally 3 miles. Literally 3 miles from where I grew up. Like literally 3 miles when I go back in this winter and all that. Rich and Ron Saul. That's right. One played for the Rams and one for the Redskins. They were brothers. Yeah, they were pretty good. Butler High School. Mark Stepnoski. Bill Fralick. Here's a great thing about Bill Fralick. I see everybody now. Everybody is I see everybody's in the what do you call that now? The chat.
The chat. Oh
So
yeah,
we
everybody's
got
firing up. Yep.
Beatles eternally now. That's great. Mm. Uh the one thing with Bill Fralick, he was at Penn Hills. He was in 9th grade. And well, damn it, I gave it away. So anyway, Bill Fralick, the college recruiters came up to Bill Fralick after practice one time. I think it was Jackie Sherrill. He comes up to him and goes, "Hey, he was 6'9", 325, and he had a beard almost all the way down to his knees." And he said, "Hey, son, where are you going to college next year?" And he goes, "I'm not going to college next year." And they said, "What? You're not going to college? You're 6'9", 325. Why are you not going to college next year?" And he goes, "Well, I'm only in 9th grade." So that's Bill Fralick, and he just passed away. And there were a lot of people that were really a big thing on Fralick. They really liked him. Russ Grimm went to Southmoreland. He was a quarterback, believe it or not, and then went to at Southmoreland High School. He was their quarterback, and then he went to offensive lineman at Pitt, and then the rest is history there. Tackle, is that Cortez Kennedy?
It is.
There we
Lincoln
go, Oakland
Kennedy. You're talking
Raiders,
about
right?
Lincoln Kennedy. I'm sorry.
Lincoln Kennedy. All right. Cortez, that's right. He
You
was a
got two
defensive
Raiders there,
guy.
Henry Lawrence, Lincoln Kennedy, right? But it's, I've tried to make sure that I've got at least, two centers there and enough guards and tackles so that we've got depth. And you can see Pennsylvania's got 71 players on this roster. Um,
Yeah.
it's a bunch of them. Defense. Let's go to the linemen.
Oh, dude,
Jason
this is where
Taylor.
you're going to
Jason
see.
Taylor.
Yeah,
Cat Cavage
Jason
with the
Taylor.
Giants. Cat Cavage. Now that we have pro Football Reference has the stat data. It's great when they've gone back and added this in because Cabbage, I think, is averaging, what's he got? Okay, look at all of the sacks on here. He's a 16 sack per season, along with Jason Taylor, along with Aaron Donald on the inside,
Oh, Aaron Donald out of Penn Hill's the same
and Joe
high
Klecko,
school as.
and the
Yeah,
Manster. I mean, you talk about interior linemen. You got three great ones right there.
you do. Joe Klecko went to Temple. I remember when I was equipment guy at Pitt, his son played for Temple, and that's all you heard. Klecko was part of that sack exchange.
Yep.
And
Gastineau.
all you heard was, oh, his dad, his dad, his dad. His son wasn't bad at all, but his son was the only player really on defense. But he was really good at Temple. Hayward, defensive line. White, which White is that?
It is
Randy
Randy
White.
White, the Manster from the
Oh,
Cowboys.
there you go. You have the pictures underneath. I could just take a
Yeah.
look at the pictures. Sorry about that. Steve McBine. No, that's not Steve McBine.
It's Lou Michaels,
Uh,
who early before the Colts, he played with
oh,
Pittsburgh as a defensive lineman and was their kicker.
yeah, Lou Michaels missed all those field goals in Super Bowl III.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Catvage, which is good. Taylor, they're pretty solid. People don't realize defensive linemen, they expect defensive linemen to be all these sack masters, but like Aaron Donald is really, really good and creates a lot of sacks just by filling in gaps, and then he gets them himself. So yeah,
And you can see the ratings here, like they're 10 pluses, White and Donald, because not only are they do they apply rush, but they also are great, outstanding at defending the run. So usually in action, to get that 10 plus, you've got to have both of that covered. I mean, another one I could give you that's really a 10 plus is an Alan Page, because they've got the best of both worlds, right? Sometimes you're giving up run stoppage to be able to have some rush speed, but look at this. You got Klecko, you got two 10 pluses and a 10 on this one. So now let's take a look at some linebackers.
Oh, you'll get some good ones here.
Jack Ham.
Jack Ham, yeah, Penn State. I knew he was a Pennsylvania guy. Jack Lambert's an Ohio guy.
Mm-hmm.
Ham, let's see.
Joe
George,
Schmidt,
Matt
who was
Millen.
a Lion. Yep. Mike Lucci. You got two Lions on this team that I'm familiar with from Lions history.
I'm wondering, Joe Schmidt, that was 1950s, right? I think his
60s,
his numbers
early 60s.
I think his numbers retired from the University of Pittsburgh. Joe Schmidt. They have Schmidt, Marshall Goldberg as the old ones. Then you have Mike Ditka, then Dorsett, Mark May. And then you have, let's see, Marino, Fitzgerald, Dorsett. I think I said him. I'm trying to remember. But I think Joe Schmidt, yeah, he's a Pittsburgh guy. I think he's he's University of Pittsburgh guy, but I'm not sure where he grew up. Matt Millen is, a Pennsylvania guy. Jack Ham is.
Bill George from Myron Patios, who was with Pittsburgh, I think, early on, and then this is a later photo when he went to the Redskins.
Yeah, I think when you go to safeties will surprise people, because I can think of Aliquippa High School with probably about 3 safeties. Like I could literally do an Aliquippa All-Stars and use the whatever, and then it's like, that's unbelievable. And they only graduate 40 kids a class. 40, and they're a public school. 40
Wow.
kid Darrell Rivas, Aliquippa. Mike Ditka, Aliquippa. The only reason Dorsett didn't go there, Ty Law, Aliquippa. Rivas and Law right there, 2 Aliquippa. They graduate 40 kids, that's guys and girls, and they play quad A. They play 4 classifications up. And
wow.
so they have less than 200 kids that go to their high school from 9 through 12. It's a public high school. And the only reason why Dorsett didn't go there, he went to Hopewell, is because they drew a line down the middle of his duplex. He lived in a duplex. The other one was Aliquippa. His was Hopewell. Talk about gerrymandering, as they say. But yeah, that's a solid defensive backs right there, especially when you have Revis and Law at both corners.
Yep.
Oh my God.
It's a good team.
Um,
Now, here's what I've done. I've got these 4 teams done: Michigan, Ohio, Illinois, Pennsylvania. Done, done, done. Started Georgia. A little insight into Georgia right here. Here are their 3 quarterbacks. I just started some work on that. Deshaun Watson's there. Brad Johnson and Cam Newton.
okay. And yeah, I think people forget. People want to take the totality of their career, but if you're only taking the 3 years, Brad Johnson's a heck of a quarterback. He had 3 good years in a row when he won a Super Bowl, Tampa Bay. Cam Newton was really good for 3 years. Deshaun Watson, really good. I
Yep.
know they got a bunch of running backs and wide receivers in defense. They're an underdog team.
So
They're an underdog. They could
I've
win it all.
I've done quarterbacks and running backs only. Let's take a look at the running backs. That would be Jim Brown when you see Brown, William Andrews, Jamal Lewis, Ernest Biner, Herschel Walker, Garrison Hurst, Alvin Kamara, and it's Terry Allen. That's deep.
Jim Brown. Oh
Jim
my
Brown
God. And
and
then,
Herschel Walker.
oh, you're gonna run a wishbone back there.
That
Pro
would be
team
awesome,
running
huh?
the wishbone. They That's incredible. Like Georgia is an upset team. People are always looking at Florida, Georgia,
Yep.
Texas, California. But as you said, you put 11 out there, Georgia's going to compete. They have a lot of good defensively. And Illinois is, I think, one that people don't realize
Let's
has a
pull them
lot
back
coming
up.
out.
Let's pull them back up, take a peek at Illinois. I don't have the photos in yet for Illinois, but you got Captain Kirk Cousins, McNabb, and here's the guy that never gets enough love. But in a game like this, it's built on stats and attributes from his era. Ken Anderson.
Oh,
That's who I
Ken
would
is
start in this
solid.
in a heartbeat. Now Jim Hart's there as well, but if we look at Ken Anderson in fact, if I look at their ratings here, their ERA plus, Cousins 107 completion, McNabb dead average, 119. Anderson's 19% above the average mark here. No doubt he's who I would start on this team.
If Ken Anderson played 20 years later, he would have 3 Super Bowl rings. Like if he were today's Cincinnati quarterback, I think he's better than Joe Burrow. It's just he is. Like you look at him, and I think he is. And I think that Ken Anderson, if he were on today, I think he got the short end of the stick. He was on the team. The team was good, but not great. And back in the NFL in the late 70s, there was such a divide in teams. That's why every playoff games were blowouts. Super Bowls were rarely close because you always had that big divide. And Ken Anderson it's like the NBA today. The NBA has that big divide. You have
Hmm.
maybe 5 or 6 teams that can win it. And then the rest, you have the second, third, and then you have the last third, which is helpless. Well, they were the top of the second, third, Cincinnati. They weren't going to beat the Steelers. The Oilers were a little bit more elite. The Dallas Cowboys were up there. The AFC. That's the one thing with Ken Anderson. He was at the wrong place at the wrong time, but he had all the talent. And I think for this Illinois team, I think he's going to have a very solid year. And I think I would start him over Donovan McNabb.
Yep.
Well, it depends. It depends on what you have, what kind of a team. It's either going to be Anderson or McNabb.
Well, let's look at this. Running wise, you got Otis Armstrong, Mike Pruitt. Oddly enough, I wondered where Greg, his brother, was, but I realized they were not the same age and born in different states. I can't remember where Greg Pruitt's at, but only Mike Pruitt in Illinois. And that's the burner there, Michael Turner, that played with the Falcons. So, you've got a little bit of speed there. You've got Pierre Thomas and Ingram from the Saints. So, maybe it's a passing team. We look at you've got the Sharp brothers, one at tight end and one at wide receiver for Anderson to
Oh,
use.
Those are incredible. That's a Ken Anderson team if you got that. Ken will get the ball down 20 yards. Donovan McNabb was good because he ran that like 3 to 7 yard zone where he could hit anything in there because the Eagles' offense was meant for that. Whereas if you put some high flyers like Sterling Sharp and all that at wide receiver, I'm taking a look. Antoine Randall L. I mean, yeah, Don Beebe
That's
was,
Mark Jackson with the Broncos back in the late
yeah.
80s, early 90s. Take a look at their. I don't have any. I've got the pictures done. I just haven't dropped them in here for this team. Conrad Dobler.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah, how about a name there?
Ron Yari, who's one of
Conrad.
the greatest tackles ever from Minnesota. Chris Hinton.
Mike. Oh, that's Mock. I keep thinking
Yeah, Karl Mock
Munchak. But
from
yeah,
center for the Oilers.
Deal. Deal. Where was he from? I remember he was a
David Deal, Giant. Okay, this is based off some Giant
Giants.
years. He can play guard or tackle on this. Take a look at defensive linemen. You got Simeon Rice, Ed Abradovich from the old Bears, Russell Maryland. So they don't have. If you look at their ratings here, they don't have what Pennsylvania has as far as all-time superstar linemen, right? So this is one of those teams. So not every team here is built equally with just a bunch of all-stars. They have their own uniqueness, which is going to make this project a blast to me.
It's well, it also goes with the culture. Western Pennsylvania has always been smash mouth. So although you have some great quarterbacks, you're not going to throw Marino 5,000 times in a game. You're going to give it to Dorsett. You're going to give it to everybody else. That's the biggest thing is the identities are following the cultures. When you go out west, you're going to get a lot of 40, 50 point a game teams because their culture is throw the ball. And then defense is like if somebody accidentally has a bad pass, try and pick it off.
And what's
That's their
interesting
version of
is
defense.
what I notice is when I run the computer managers, it's really interesting for me to see their game plan and how they're taking a look at the totality of these rosters and figuring out what percentage of a team they're going to be. In other words, are we going to be a 50-50 team, a 52-48 team? It's really cool when you run that and see how it's choosing to balance the offense. Two great Illinois linebackers, Ray Nitschke and Butkus, on the same team.
They're a good team. The thing is, will they get hurt? Because I'm thinking about keeping injuries on. And if I keep
Oh yeah,
injuries
you
on,
have
that'll
to.
allow
It's
the depth.
realism. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you got to do that.
The only reason why when I do replays, I keep injuries off is because when I do the 2007 replay, like of college football, people want to know who the best college football team was of all time. And
Yeah.
it kind of, of 2007. And it kind of ruins it if West Virginia, people go, oh, well, if they beat Pitt, they could they have done it, blah, blah, blah. Well, if they lose their best quarterback in the first round of the qualification or the tournament, then all of a sudden people are like, oh, what the heck? Can you run this again? And let's see if they can do it healthy. So
Yep.
for that, I take it off. But for a tournament like this, where you have depth in teams, you leave it on because Marino goes down. Now all of a sudden you have Unitas or Namath. It's a whole different game. They got to readjust who they are as a team to their quarterback.
Take a look at Ohio here for you. Now I've got the picture pack done here. Here is what the computer, in looking at it, it's close between. This is different styles, right? I mean, these are all great quarterbacks. Staubach and Dawson are great for their time, and that shows when you bring him in here. Roethlisberger is good as well, and Russell Wilson is great completion percentage and gives you some run threat. So this is pretty open as to who starts.
Who do you have as running back?
You have Larry Zonka, Jim Otis, a couple of big fullbacks there. You've got Lorenzo Hampton. We've got Robert Smith out of Minnesota. You got Le'Veon Bell, Archie
Larry
Griffin.
Zonka.
And Larry Zonka, yeah. So you can put some beef back there, or you can get cute out of the backfield, right, with Bell. And Byers, another big receiving back from those Eagles
Yeah,
teams.
Keith Byers
Yeah, good.
shared the
74
name with the
receptions.
yeah. So if you're Len Dawson and they ran a pass offense back in the late 60s, Len Dawson would be good with Keith Byers. So that makes sense. Byers and then Robert Smith. That makes sense because those people are pass catching. They're probably going to
Yep.
run an old Kansas City style offense of the late 60s.
And if we take a
That's
look at the
probably what they're going to
coach,
do.
let's take a look at the game plan. And you can start seeing here, first down, they're going to run half the time. Um, this is just a great way when you come over here, if you haven't, anybody hasn't messed with it, and I'm getting into this like I did with baseball, is you come up here and just hit that generate offense, go to defense and generate this. And this gives you a great indication of whether they're going to be a running or passing team based on down. You can even get into what I call the offensive spreadsheet here, which I don't know if you've gotten this deep, Chris, but it's crazy, right? First down, you can get in here and start looking at different varied formations and so on here and get lost.
Yeah, you can.
Wide
That's
receivers. That's Chris Carter. My least favorite announcer, Chris Collinsworth, who's not a starter, but could be. Danny Abramowitz. There's a lost name in
Paul
70s history.
Warfield. Yeah,
Oh
they're
yeah, Paul
Bram.
Warfield. Yeah.
Oh,
And look at
Galloway
this,
was that
and
Joey
you've got
Galloway.
Travis Kelce right here at tight end.
Collinsworth, he was good. He went to the University of Florida. You're right. I'm not a big Collinsworth fan when he's an announcer. But as a tight end, he really helped that work in the early 80s. He was pretty integral part of the Bengals. Paul Warfield, though, you know what? Paul Warfield is really good. People forget he was with the Browns. He played in an NFL title game that they lost to the Vikings because the Vikings then went on to Super Bowl IV. And then he went on to the Miami Dolphins. And then he went to the World Football League and kind of messed his career up. But he's one of the most underrated people. He's if they go 3 or 4 wide receivers, he's pretty good. Travis Kelce's very good. You got a stacked team for Ohio. Their linebackers are going to be stacked.
Let's take a look. Let's take a look at linebackers. Yeah, Jack Lambert leading the way. Randy Gradishar and Chris Spielman. So on interior linebackers, yeah, they're looking really good. You got James Harrison.
I'm a little behind you. So when I hear that you shifted, it's about 10 seconds. So that's why
I'll give you time to catch up.
Sure. Chris Spielman's very good. I think Tom Jackson, Daryl Talley. Oh, you got it. This is pretty good. Lambert. Now, when Lambert went to Kent, here's a trivia question. Lambert went to Kent. They ran a 52. So you had Jack Lambert as the linebacker. Do you know who the other linebacker was?
I don't.
Nick Saban.
Oh, really?
So, yep, Nick Saban. Nick Saban was Jack Lambert's teammate. So, yeah, so Lambert wanted to be a veterinarian and is right now the game warden in Katanning. So do not go poaching anywhere.
Let's look at that.
He's there.
Look at this defensive backs here. You got Woodson, right? Charles Woodson on that one. Dick LeBeau. And Joey Browner.
Aqib Talib.
Tom Darden.
Rick Volk. I can't get away from that name. Every time I do a replay or something, Rick Volk is always in it somewhere.
Yep,
and he's always sticking his nose in as a Baltimore Colt or now here for Ohio.
Yes.
Super Bowl V, Rick Volk.
Offensive lineman. Here's a great offensive line. You got the brother, right, of the tight end over here at center, and Nick Mangold. So there's your two right there from the Jets. But Dan Deerdorf,
Yeah.
Tom Mack, Bob Brown, who played for the Eagles and then later the Raiders, right? There's a Hall of Famer at
Now,
tackle.
if you're allowed to put football players in that never played in the NFL, ironically, it's funny. You could put LeBron James in because he was one of the best high school football players of all time, but he played basketball.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's funny. I wouldn't put him in, but you imagine what if he took the football route? He was a heck of an athlete. Um, but yeah, I see that. Orlando Pace, he almost won the Heisman.
Since you're 10 seconds behind, I'm going to hear and pause because now I covered some of the teams that I've built and they're in the game and I can test and have fun with, and I'm doing that in between building. But now I'm going to go right to my sheet, and you mentioned Louisiana, and how about we kind of
Oh,
go through the roster that they're going to have. I have not crunched the numbers yet, haven't built them, but here's the quarterbacks. I've got 6 prominent ones that I've put on there because are fairly prominent, right?
yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Peyton Manning, Eli, Terry Bradshaw, Burt Jones, who was really good in those 3 years. Dak Prescott, Doug Williams. Doug was really good in the early 80s with Tampa Bay. Like people forget that. He was really, really good.
Oh yeah, on
Then your
the
running
yeah.
backs, Marshall Falk, Warwick Dunn. Yeah. Wendell Tyler. He played in 2 Super Bowls. 3 Super Bowls. He played 2 for the 49ers and then 1 for the Rams in Super Bowl 14.
So here's what's
Uh
interesting. You mentioned Louisiana; they've got over 700 players, but the southern states, Mississippi, well, I'd say Georgia. Georgia's got good population, but I mean Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. The amount of pros they have per population is what stands out. They field really good teams because they've had a ton of players for states that size play in the NFL. They're going to be
yeah.
tough. And you
The
can probably see it now. This is the wide receiver core for Louisiana. Some really good ones there. Reggie
oh,
Wayne, Odell Beckham Jr., Charlie Joyner, Mark Duper, Lewis Lips.
yeah, that's why I say keep it to the states because if you can field a team, do a team because those small states that can produce, they give them credit. There's small
Yes,
Alabama and small Mississippi to themselves, and then if they have to play a combo team or something, they'll be like, what the heck, we fielded teams ourselves,
I'm going to
why
see if
not?
I can find. You're going to see me just. You're going to get dizzy as I scroll through all this, but I'm trying to find some of the ones. Oh, I've got the New England team that I put together on a broadcast here with everybody the other day. Let's take a look at them. Now, this is all the New England states together, and it has its own flavor. It's letting me know that in that region, they really haven't put out that many outstanding football players.
Oh, they haven't. And that New England football has me remembering one play. And the play I'll never forget, it's on YouTube, and I can even put a link on it. A kid kicks a field goal in a playoff game, and it falls short to the 10-yard line. One kid catches it, hears the PA announcer scream, "The game is over," spikes it behind him. The other team picks it up and runs in for a touchdown. Um, and then wins the playoff game. It says the greatest or worst play of all time. I have that on my saved on YouTube.
Well,
That is incredible. But yeah, I see New England. Hasselback, sorry. Greg Landry is not too bad. But yeah, now you're going to Jack Concannon, like Mark Van Egan, yeah, with the
and
Raiders,
look how far
Floyd
back
Little.
we got some old school running backs here. When we get down to wide receiver, these aren't the Hall of Fame names that you're seeing here. But Bill Brooks, who was with the Colts, back in the 80s, I believe, and Joe Horn can, some of these names I've never seen before. So I'll learn a lot while I'm doing the research.
Jeff Queen. Jeff Queen. Yeah, Jeff Queen. I've never heard of Jeff Queen. The running back. Uh, you're right. We'll have to see how it is. We'll have to see. You never know. Now, New England, I don't mind them being one because New England has an identity. It's not because they're just small, it's because they're an identity. So it makes sense for New England to have their team. Maybe for the Dakotas to have their team. It makes sense for that. But but yeah, Tommy Wilson, Brian Piccolo, he was pretty good. Lake Dawson, I remember him. Joe Horn, Jim Coakley, Lake Dawson. I remember Lake Dawson, Kansas City Chief, but he was Notre Dame. Sean Morey, oh yeah.
We're going to have some fun with this. I'm learning a lot working on the teams, like all these projects, and I think that's one thing I enjoy is it's the what if. I love the creating and the what if, but also, and you'll notice down here, I've got alternate reality mode. You want me to run? Let's run a couple little sims here, if you don't mind, and see some of the how these teams match up.
Sure.
So let's take Pennsylvania at home, Ohio, Pennsylvania matchup.
Oh, I was just thinking that. Just thinking that.
And I'll go computer versus computer. Oh, look at this.
Well, I'm still behind. I
They're
can't
still
see. I'm
behind.
watching the YouTube channel. I'm watching the YouTube channel right now. And it's not picking any, it's not showing the game right now. It's still showing your screen for like Joe Horn, Bill Brooks, Fred Dugan.
Okay.
There we go.
I'll let it catch up. You're slowly going to see. I fired the game up and did just a quick computer versus computer game, and I've got the box score up. It was Ohio at Pennsylvania, and it was a Pennsylvania win 30-27. Just a quick, I'll run these simulations when I'm building to see if there's anything that looks odd, or sometimes, if I've had a input error, it'll reveal that. But they played Staubach against Marino in this one.
Oh, I see it now. You're a little behind. I think that was my fault. Staubach, Marino, I see that. McCoy, 47 yards. There we go. How'd they end it? How scoring wise? How'd they do it?
It went into let's take a look at the scoring. Here's the scoring. Field goal. Hey, Lou Michaels. They've got him as the starting. Oh, I have to change that and get Robbie Gould in there, I think. But they've got Michaels in there kicking, and he makes a field goal to win it with 20 seconds left.
There we go. Real quick, take a look at the stats. See how many missed field goals there were with Lou Michaels. Because if Lou Michaels is in, he missed 4 field goals. Where's there we go, the player stats. The Lou Michaels field goal.
Oh, you've caught up a little bit. Did you have me behind on the YouTube? Now
yeah,
it's a little bit closer. Okay.
Yeah, there we go. Lou Michael 1 for 1. And he missed an extra point. He missed an extra point.
Look at that. In the first quarter, he missed that.
Wow. David Prater. Yeah. There it is. David Prater.
And this, I like this view because this shows the lineups that they went with. And you can see what's funny with these deep teams, the computer game plan is running, two receiver, 2 running back sets, right? Because it's looking at these teams and seeing how deep they are at running back. There's Alan Page on that Ohio team.
McCoy. Oh, yeah. Like we get these preconceptions that just because a team wins a Super Bowl with a running back, that running back is better. But in alternate reality mode, we're looking at physical ability and whether they gel into the team that's created. So Tony Dorsett does not have to start on Pennsylvania offense because maybe LaShawn McCoy is just better there. And Leroy Kelly is better there because it's alternate reality mode. It is physical ability we're looking at. We're looking at team concept, everything like that. So, but it
And
is around. Go ahead.
and that alternate reality brings in that other element of you don't, I believe when you're playing head to head here, you don't have that analysis tool that you can look at, right? It's hidden because they don't want you to know whether your player has been slightly bumped up attribute wise or down. It throws that little bit of realistic element into it. So I'm a fan of trying to mess around with this with the other sports as well in some of the replays because I've got all-time greats leagues, right? That is what makes it really interesting to me. So I haven't dabbled in this up until now, but I do like the idea, like you running the pools in the league with alternate reality.
Oh, yeah. Take a look real quick. Get out of that real quick and take a look at the tackles under yards. Says something about 33 and 9. There we go. Does Stubblefield had 33 tackles in that game? Or I don't know. No. Go ahead back to Action PC.
Let me run another exhibition here. Let's run the Ohio and Michigan teams here. We'll do a quick one and just take a look at what transpires. Oh, 36-20, Ohio over Michigan. Take a look at the scoring. Matt Prater, definitely on that Ohio team. They're going with him. Earl Morrall is in.
Staubach, Prater. Oh, yeah. And the rules, too, will be good.
Look at Staubach throwing to the tight end. Travis Kelce, he had six catches, 145 yards.
You look at Earl Morrall, 14 of 35. That's Earl Morrall numbers.
Exactly. Now we can scroll down here and take a look at some of the defensive numbers. I think that's what you were looking at early, seeing who's leading in tackles and passes defended, things like that.
Graham Krause, 1 sack. Marvin Harrison with the sack.
Having fun just running some of these, see if there's any injuries. No injuries in that game. Of course, I don't know if I've got injuries turned on in the rule set here. But it's fun just running a couple of the test games here. Let's go Pennsylvania at the Ohio team here. And another good one. Pennsylvania. So a 3-point win and now a 4-point win. Leroy Kelly, 29 seconds left. So there would have been 2 great games. Broadcast, right? I mean, can you imagine the way this plays out where it's coming down to the last 30 seconds and there's either a field goal or somebody punches it in for the win?
Staubach, the 79-yard pass to take the lead. Yeah, and Marino's a quarterback.
Yep.
So that's really good. Let's see the real quick. Let's see how he did throwing the ball.
Oh my gosh, Staubach. All over the place with that with the percentages.
Well, we have, that's one thing. Football is naturally a defensive game when you get to the pros. So when you have when you have a really good defensive league and you're fighting for everything, I can see your running game being very important, but I could see all the passing being like 17 for 41.
Look
or
at
20 for 39.
McCoy. This is a big day. He goes over 100 yards, 5.6 a carry. Smith, 6.5 a carry. So they were really had some good production out of the running.
Look at the field goals. Lou Michaels, 1 for 2. David Prater, 2 for 4. Prater lost that game.
And look at this, Lambert with 10 tackles. You know, it's interesting. Let's take a look at the roster on here for Pennsylvania. Let's take a look at the depth. Well, I think we have to go lineups on special team. They've got it's interesting. I got the special team set up here for Gould to be in there as the field goal kicker. I have to take a look at that because to me, Lou Michaels, I wouldn't have him kicking with his low percentage. That would be Gould. Got several options here. Look at that. He's got 88% on the field goal. Of course, let's take a look at him and his ratings. Yeah, so Lou Michaels is 7% above the norm for his field goal percentage from his era, and Robbie Gould is 106.
I refed a JV game with Pat McAfee when he was in ninth grade. So he was at Plum High School. And when I see Pat McAfee, I'm like, that was my first, I think it was my first year officiating. It was a JV game.
He's
I
a
think he
holder on
was
this team
10th or
too.
11th. Yeah, he was, but I didn't know it. He was Plum High School. I think this was 2003, 2004, 2003, and the fall of 2003. And I just remember doing that, and it's like, oh, okay. And then afterwards, it's like, okay, I did not know that. It's somebody I didn't know. But anyway, I got to go because of the Rugby World Cup. My buddy's having a thing over, and the game starts 8:45, and right now it is 8:05.
Oh, that's perfect. Well, hey, Chris, I just want to tell you, thanks for joining me this morning. I'm cranking out teams and I'm having fun. And time wise, I know it's not until 2024 into January sometime that you see kicking off this project, which gives me plenty of time the rest of this year to get this file done for you. And I hope
Oh,
you
that'd be
haven't
great.
moved my deadline up.
Well, we were going to kick off next week. I just didn't. No, just kidding. Just kidding.
Yeah.
No. Whenever you get it done, and remember, I'm here. I have winter break till January 10th. So anything in January won't be like January 2nd or 3rd. It'll be more like January 10th or whatever.
That's perfect.
January 11th, I'll be back. We have school. I'll be back there. But all right, great to see you. And it was really cool watching your basketball broadcast. That was awesome. And I really do love your broadcasts. I'm honored to be part of this broadcast. And I look forward to doing this with you another time.
Yeah, and looking down the road for getting some of us on here from the community just to have chats like this and talk about the nonsense that we find entertaining, as I call it. It's this crazy what if sim world that we all live in. So thanks a lot, Chris. Have fun watching the rugby tournament, and it's been great having you. But we will be in touch.
All right, thank you very much. Have a great day, and I have a feeling we'll talk soon.
You got it, man. Thanks.
All right, have a great
Bye.
day. Bye.
So had some fun with Chris for sure on that. Been having, I guess I'm so deep into this project now, right? Now I'm forgetting about, hey, we've got Shanks 2 coming up here. So one of the things that I would say is, one of the things, if we can we've got a few weeks here now to try to drum up some more support for that, which I think is great. We can expand from the 14 teams. And I think we're getting to a point, once we get like around 20 teams or so, it doesn't make sense for us to have franchises like we did. I believe, and Clue's on the broadcast here. Clue, you can keep me honest here. That was a way for folks to maybe have some familiarity with the franchise and really try to encourage more people to come in and participate. But I'm reminded of the real approach that Clue had brought up to make it challenging is each round of the draft, you get assigned a random year and team, which means, let's say you get 1943. Well, let's pick a better year, 1972, and you get the Texas Rangers. Then guess what? You've got to go to that team and figure out who you're going to draft from the 1972 Rangers and then move on. So to me, that really spreads out the quality. It spreads out the randomness. It spreads out the variety. It makes it more challenging, and more players get brought into the league for our history aspect of learning. So I really think we should head back towards that now that we've got plenty of people interested, right? Above the 14 we had, which was great. But yeah, I think we could get closer to 20 teams, and that might be the way we go, right? Yeah, big clue. He called that the baby step. Now, MV is going to be like, oh, no. What about my teams and who do I protect? Now, down the road, once we get into that, we could have that keep up to 5 players, then you get there next year. But I think this would be the baby step that gets us towards what we really thought would be the most challenging. So, and more to come on that. But yeah, baseball talk. Oh, baseball talk. We can get into that, right? I can shut that down. A little fire up the baseball game just so that we can get over into a little bit of baseball now. But no, I appreciate Chris coming on and us being able to connect and kind of talk through what we've done. But here's that wonderful season-ending Howie Shanks 3. We can see Ty Cobb didn't mean a lot for my team. I mean, he led the league in batting, but didn't amount to much for me. But definitely looking to forward to Shanks 4. Yeah, nobody cares what he wants. He's heard that many times before. So yeah, Chris is always entertaining. I'm being reminded that while we do the baseball project and those rosters are 25, 30. When you get to these football teams, it's like you're looking at 50 plus people. So it's a little bit more work. Some of the stats aren't as intensive as baseball to have to compile in the game, which helps. But I think still, just because of the numbers, it takes a little bit longer to do a team. When I go over and work on the basketball project, I'm relieved in that um, there's less on that roster, and those tend to go a little bit quicker. But there are plenty of stats in basketball too. So as I move around, each one has its own unique characteristics and things I enjoy working about. And again, with the pictures, I'm having some fun with the pictures. Yeah, it's interesting, Clue, because when you're on that Pennsylvania team, almost he knows something about every player on that Pennsylvania team and where they went to high school, and it does make it really interesting. He would. That's why it would be great for him to. It's almost like you need to slow down some of the broadcast because the play-by-play color that he could bring into that it's enhances the broadcast, and that's what I think I'm excited about. Is I don't have to broadcast, so I can have the fun of creating this project and handing it off to somebody like Chris, who can orchestrate the pool play, get it set up, and then do the broadcast that brings that level of excitement. And I'm a big believer with just how he broadcasts something, it draws people in, right? Maybe like, hey, I don't really care about this, but his enthusiasm and the way he does it makes you want to listen to that and go, wow, what the heck is this all about? So I'm really, I think, excited to be able to hand that off and sit back and be a spectator and watch him care for that. And I am intrigued with I've got a fixed mindset around running seasons and then getting into playoffs. The pool play opens up all kinds of ideas, and you heard him talk about that. If you listen to the broadcast, if not, go back, where his brain's just firing off on how to set that up and how he's going to use different rule sets that would make sense and make it more believable for somebody that's trying to perform in a pool versus what you would do when it's a one and done. So that was really interesting. So I'm looking forward to getting done with all the hard work, sitting back and being a spectator. Big clue, yeah. Watching football is that I get it. Some people don't have the passion, but what's funny is I think MV even shared this that he does enjoy some of the other sports, and at times has been just as in I think even before baseball, baseball I think is kind of his newest passion that he's rekindling. I think before he was talking about like there's different times where it was basketball and football, and he's recapturing some of that passion. Last night, Dwayne and I don't know how many people were else caught that, but I was sitting here watching MV explain a cricket game. Now, if you'd have told me I'd have been watching cricket, a few months ago, you're crazy. But I find I'm getting some interest in that. So, do we have a chance to, is it cross collaborate, cross pollinate, cross contaminate? I don't know what word we're going to use. Everybody in the community kind of rubs off. And I told you, I think of Dwayne, I was watching a while back when he was doing the racing. And in my brain, every now and then, I think, gosh, do I want to do that? But I see it and it appeals to me because I can remember being a kid in the 70s listening to like Wide World of Sports or whatever. And I can remember Franz Klammer skiing. And I'm thinking in my head back then, oh, wouldn't it be cool to do a skiing game? Boxing, all that stuff stands out to me. So there is room for all of it, Clue. And I have to say, if I did any one thing for like even 6 months straight and not touch the others, my brain would go to mush. I mean, I have to have the ability to go back and forth, back and forth. And what's funny is I'll be working on one, then have a thought about another and shut it down and then start headed down a rabbit trail with research or things like that. It has been fun. I've been using baseball reference a little bit better lately. I mean, some of their the ability for them to pull out to select certain things and pull out Excel spreadsheets out of it. I've never bothered to dig into. In the last few months, I've been digging into it, and it's making what I do a lot easier. And I thought, I go in with tunnel vision all the time on this is how I go in and use it, and I don't stop and look around at all the bells and whistles that have been added, and then figure out how I can make it work for me. And I guess that's a habit in life, right? If we're all tunnel visioned in and not looking for what else is out there, we might miss something. So, note to self. And while we got Clue here, makes me wonder. I think we've got Clue and Beatles still hanging out. I don't know if MV's in here, or he might be over there polishing his trophy or something else. You just don't know with MV. I don't know if he's still hanging around. I know MV is. He knows that the league would be great if we grew it and went back to that. You just get a random team and year and draw from it. But his brain is firing on who to keep, the Giants, what year, and all that good stuff. Doesn't have a knob. He is poor MV. He's like the team mascot in many ways that gets needled. But yeah, I think MV is another one when in talking to him that has really a lot of other passions that get rekindled. Right? He talked last night about a lot of the work he's done similar to what I have with projects with his cricket, where he's digging deep into the numbers and doing things like that. So the more folks we've got dabbling in this community, the better. I couldn't believe the other night. I don't know what. The playoffs. We ended up in the teens, and I don't know if anybody else looks at like how many people are logged on, but to me, when you get up into the 13 plus range of people that are tuning into a broadcast, it's like a different level here. It's like the Nielsen rating meter is hitting hard, right? So it is funny. It's all relative, right? We don't have hundreds of people on a podcast, but what we have is if we can get in the teens, people in this community popping up and watching people's broadcasts, to me, that's a pretty good benchmark right now uh, of interest. And I've seen some of that grow. And I watched in the last few days a really cool thing. I watched people hopping over, myself too. I got busy at work one day. Terrible, right? Work. But being able, hey, Legends, welcome here. Watching people go to like Legends broadcast, and then Dwayne's going to broadcast. Now Beatles is broadcasted. Now I'm headed over to the RJL network. I mean, it's just I've seen more momentum with people kind of checking in. Hey, when are you going to broadcast? I don't want to step on you. Al coming in and popping in on some of those, and people going and watch that. So it's just been really cool, I think, to see more activity where people are supporting all of the other folks that are out there broadcasting in their projects. So that's a pretty cool thing. And I'll always sit down when I'm creating, when I'm working on this project. I fire up YouTube and I'm like, I'm always disappointed if there's nobody live. I don't know if anybody else feels that way. I'm like, oh, nobody's live right now? Oh, okay, well, what can I watch that I missed yesterday? So then I'll go, boom, and I'll start catching up on that. And then all of a sudden I'm catching up and I realize, oh my God, so and so's been live now for 30 minutes and I've just been listening to the stuff yesterday. So away away I go into that. So that's kind of how my day goes. If I'm not on a work call or whatever, I'll fire up YouTube to see if anybody's broadcasting. It becomes my nice background noise while I'm working on projects. And I don't think I'm alone. I think others may be doing the same thing. Nice, nice, nice. Legend Sport Universe is in here doing his trickery again. Who knows what's going on? Yeah, you'll announce right before you silence somebody. That's pretty good. But anyway, glad we've got some folks in here. And let me know if anybody has Discord ready, because I've got about 20 more minutes. I'm free to do a chin wag or talk nonsense or anything. So let me know if anybody, give me a thumbs up, or if anybody wants to come on and chat for a bit here. If Clue's available, Legends, anybody. Give me some thoughts on projects coming up, Shanks 4, anything. Legends is off and rolling now. Okay, Clue says, I'm going to talk. Clue. I'm ringing Clue. We're going to try to bring Clue into the mix. Is this the real big Clue?
The real big, yes, sir.
I think he used to hate that when I had the real big Clue on my team. I used to call that person the real big Clue,
Yeah.
right?
There's worse epithets I can think of. So
Clue. So, what are your thoughts on? As I started thinking about the franchise and all that, I realized, you know what, this was never this was a baby step towards what you'd really thought, which was that everybody gets a specific year and a team, a more narrow focus to have to draft from. So, thoughts on now that we've got enough interest that we could head back to that original concept you had.
yeah, well, first of all, I just want to say thanks to everyone who participated. I think our most of us agree the third iteration has been the most successful, not just in terms of the number of people participating, but I think everybody had a good time, and it was definitely, um, while the races were a little down the stretch less competitive than I thought, overall the league was much more competitive, and it was fantastic to see having the wild cards because we had that many teams in the league.
I
You know,
agree.
for while I hate the wild cards in real life, in a fun league like this, it's nice to have more people involved in the playoffs. So
Yeah.
just had a great time watching all the broadcasts and seeing the great lineups everybody put together. And again, for me, the draft is the most fun. But seeing the teams that they drafted, oftentimes you don't get a big picture of that till you actually see them in gameplay in the sim. And that was just so much fun for me. I think you and I agreed at the beginning of the sim, we expected Bernie's team to walk away with it because
Yeah.
that was just such a great pairing of franchises. But really, really enjoyed everything, and just hope everybody else is looking forward to Shanks 4 as much as I am.
Well, and the other thing that I think it did. So when you say, yeah, this was the best iteration, and the other thing that came to light is those that wanted to get in and tinker with lineups. Let's stop and think about it. Yeah, there's always a little frustration as we're learning more and more about how to do it, and what the settings are. But now everybody that did has come away with a better understanding and have learned more about the game engine and how to tinker with lineups. So if we're looking at
Yeah.
learning, whether it's baseball history, a new player, or more about the game that we're using, right? Those are all good things that we're all in a better spot going into the next iteration. So there's a lot of learning going on, and it was fun. And
Yeah, and that was part of the baby step idea with the draft was, I told you in MV before, I thought maybe there's some intimidation there that some people who didn't participate might feel either because they think there's a bigger time commitment than there is,
yeah,
or because, the draft rules aren't, as straightforward as you might expect in a regular draft. So I was trying to set things up in such a way that it would facilitate more people joining in. And we had several people, even on draft day, if I'm not mistaken, say, "Oh, it's this is what it is." Count me
yep,
in next time. And so, like you said, I would love to see 20 people. If we could get six more or a couple
yeah,
more, whatever, and just grow this. We have so many more people in the community who are regulars on the channels that would be fantastic to have them jump in on a draft. It's just a matter of getting everybody on one night together to get it done.
agreed. Yeah, I think that is really the whole idea. It's the camaraderie, the social event, the fun, the history, the challenge, the strategy, a lot of cool things. And it's not a big time commitment. And as I
Yeah.
mentioned the other day, is we've had people that show up to the first draft, we get through 15 rounds or whatever, and then when we come to the next night, they couldn't make it. And you've come up
Yeah.
with a great way behind the scenes for them to still have a chart to go draft from. Now, yeah, maybe they didn't get a certain player, but really, it's extremely rare. And there's so many talented people to draft, and the way that you've done it by spreading out some of the random years and teams, it just really allows for competition, even though you can't make some of the nights.
Yeah. Yeah. And I, you had said let's move towards the ultimate thing of just a random year and team. That's the end goal eventually. I have and I wanted to kick this off with you today as to pitch this to everybody who's listening and get your feedback, Steve. The My idea for Shanks 4 is to take it one more baby. Here I'm talking with my hands. You can't see.
Okay.
Take one more baby step closer to that, but not quite the full leap yet. Trying to get more people to come in and join. And that is here was my idea was we keep one team, franchises the reservation rights, as I think of it, to draft from, and then you have the other, you put the other team into the pool. That opens up, let's say we had the league, so it's 18
Yep.
teams next time. What we would do then is have, uh, you know, those extra people would then have quality franchises to draft from. Depending on what hour of the day you ask him, he's either dropping the Dodgers or the Giants. So, oh my gosh, hard decisions. Bernie, I'm sure, is keeping the Red Sox, but that means the Cardinals will be available, so
Yep.
on and so forth. I'll bet money that uh, Robert's going to keep the Mets and drop the Pirates. So that should be happy news for Beatles. But in any case, so here was my idea this next go round, because don't want to do it exactly the same. Again, want to try to move it just inching it each time a little closer to the end goal. That is, the teams that the franchises we reserve, we will draft the first half of the draft from those franchises. If you had any keepers, that's, let's say you take five keepers from that franchise,
Yep.
that's five fewer picks you would have in in that phase of the draft.
Okay.
Once everybody has drafted their top 15, has 15 players on their roster, then we would simply have a draft of it's a random year and you could do random year and random team. So at that point, we wouldn't, in the second half of the draft, I have the Reds. I wouldn't have exclusive rights to the Reds in the second half of the draft. One way to do it.
I like it.
Another way would be the entire draft to do it, where you get the random year and the random team. So the first overall, let's say the first overall pick goes to Beatles, and Beatles reserve team is the Pirates. And so I give him the random year and team for the first overall pick, and it's, I don't know, 1930. This will make him happy. 1932 A's, let's say. So then Beatles could pick from 1932, either from the A's, the random team, or from his reserve team, the 1932 Pirates. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you'd have one reserve team you can always pick from no matter what the year is. And then you get assigned with the year a random second team, and you can choose from either of those rosters. That makes it's the same format as we had last time, except for the second team is constantly changing. You don't have the same two teams the entire draft. You only have one franchise that you can pick from the entire draft. So I'd love to see in the comments what people think about that idea, but that's kind of a halfway measure towards
Well, and it's
getting.
good too, because if you think about this, right, we're going to
Mhm.
get, ideally, right, however many franchises there are. If
Yeah,
we go down to where there's just that one, okay,
yeah,
that allows more people to have the one, and it also allows to not have that designated second one, which keeps it more wide open each round. Because I
yeah,
think what we're going to get to is, if we get enough people interested in this league, it's just once you get a couple of these lockdown franchises, you've got an advantage.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know how many people. I mean, love to see the community grow too, but my quote unquote ideal number of participants would be 24. We would have 4 divisions of 6
6.
teams
Yep.
each. Yeah, just like we all grew up with.
Yep.
I think something along those lines would just be,
Win
the
your
perfect.
division, and let's go, and division winners move off into the playoffs.
That's right. And when the season, when running the sim only goes a couple of weeks, it's not like this is the only time all year. So if my team's not competitive this go round, there's always the next draft coming up in a couple of weeks. So it's not like you have to wait long. So people won't, if you ever played in fantasy or rotisserie or any kind of keeper league and in a
Oh yeah,
sim league,
you got to sit there with
you know,
actual week after
yeah,
week of grueling uh,
when you're
misery.
not competitive. Yeah, exactly. Or worse, anyone who watches Sportsman Z's channel, bless his heart, whenever Bob talks about his several Stratomatic leagues he's in, he goes season to season to season, not competing. And I'm like, bless your heart for not quitting on it. You're having fun.
Hey,
Yeah,
look
that's
at
the number one reason people leave those leagues is I'm not
hey,
winning, and that's not fun after a while.
hey,
So
Legends is pointing out how, hey, keep making these more complex. It'll require as much intelligence as football. Look at that. He's throwing a couple
oh,
digs in there because uh, I think that's good. So let me see if I can recap this, what you're saying. So we could say,
yeah,
okay, those of us now, you can protect one franchise, okay? And then
mhm,
all the other ones would be open for the new people coming in to get their
that's
main
right.
franchise, right? Then we run the draft. You have your franchise to choose from, or a random team and year for each round.
Yep. And I would throw this in. Anybody who would want to do this is welcome to. if you don't want to reserve any franchise, you can just get 2 random teams with your random year on every pick.
Yeah, so you don't want to commit to a friend. Now, let me ask you this. Let's say you're keeping the Reds. Let's just throw that
Yeah.
out there. Now, what if would the Reds then be an option for me as this
Oh,
random second
absolutely.
team?
Yeah.
So I could
Yeah,
get a
absolutely.
year and grab a Red player that you might be
Yep.
looking for too and snatch it right from out from under you.
That's right. So
I
it's
love that.
not exclusive. Yeah.
Love it,
So
love it, love it.
again, it adds, I don't want to say urgency, but it adds an element of strategy again, in that I might want a certain player or hope I get a certain, let's say Pete Rose, because he had a long career and, a lot of good seasons. So I want Pete Rose, but so far, hey, he comes up and it's a year when he's on the roster, but it's not one of his best seasons. And I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll get lucky later in the draft. Well, knowing that somebody else could get a season with the Reds would make me more likely to consider taking him at a less, so again, so even the names, and we've seen this every single iteration of Shanks. People often, a lot of people are drafting on the name, not on the season.
Yeah.
And then, for one reason or another. And then what happens is when it gets into the actual sim, you have MV going, well, Cy Young stinks. Well, it's because
Yeah.
you didn't get one of his top seasons, buddy.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not picking on MV. That's just
Or
an
one, no,
easy
yeah,
example.
you are. It's easy to do. You are.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's easy too. Yeah.
No, I think
So,
it's Legends is making a great comment here about the 2 weeks being pretty cool for the league, right? And I agree too, because the actual league and we did a good time this time. Some people broadcast different things. It was fun. We got to be a little bit involved with strategy, and those that wanted to did, those that didn't. And now we can get some time and really get interest for the draft, because the draft is as much, to me, the enjoyment and fun as the actual playing out of the league, right? So,
yeah,
uh,
I did not have fun watching the league championship series where the computer AI named my backup catcher Walker Cooper as the DH for the whole series. So, but I don't want to get into the nuts and bolts of tweaking it all the time either. So
yeah, and I
I'm
know
the
you didn't
opposite.
enjoy Canada sweeping you with one of their curling. What are they? The brooms. You know what I mean? They got the curling broom out and swept you. But
Yeah, that sort of thing happens. So
it does
it
happen.
was just fun watching the whole thing.
But no, this
I
is going
just
to be
really,
fun. I love this idea. So, those of us that are in it, I'm asking Legends whether he keeps the White Sox or the Senators Twins, or he can just throw it. So here's the way the new rules would work, Legends. You could just say, hey, I don't want to commit to a franchise. So I want, um,
yeah. You can either draft a new franchise in the franchise
or
draft.
each round he would get 2 random years
Yeah,
and teams.
that's right. Or have no franchise,
Or
which is what we ultimately, that's what we want to
correct.
go to, is that nobody has a franchise. So the franchise idea was to attract the interest of people who weren't already participating. Because if you go, oh, maybe I'm not strong on baseball history with this era or this other era, at least you probably know the great players from your own favorite team from history. So I
Look
thought
what
that would be,
Beatles is bringing up. Let's get even more complex, but I like his idea. So if we had an ideal 24, which I agree with you, it would be wonderful to see if we could go from 14 to 24.
yeah.
And then we could have 12 in each, and we could do one for those people here that are like, hey, I'd really like to do this with no DH. To me, you would have to know that you're in that league, because that impacts your strategy of drafting.
Yeah, Beatles, are you suggesting that the Major League Baseball that Bud Selig created is the ideal format? Because that doesn't sound like you. That's late '90s, 2000s baseball. What you, yeah, well, no DH. What you would love, let's be honest, is no DH. Period. Which I'd be fine with in an all-time league again because we're going to have that many
Yeah.
players. However, it brings up the problem. I don't know how Steve, maybe you can opine on this. How does the game treat a pitcher who never actually hit in that season?
They will perform as an all-time pitcher average. So what is that? 132, 141 batting average or whatever. So if you run a season and use no DH, you know what? Hey,
Yeah.
let's fire the game up and play a little bit and do some testing while we're
Okay.
talking
Yeah.
here. So
Yeah.
let's
See, Beatles, I appreciate that your attitude, but I'm the opposite in that I either want to play all DH or no DH. Having it half and half is it was just an absurd thing for baseball to do for 40 years, 50 years almost. I mean, I don't mind either way what the rule is. I just would one league, one rule. But yeah, you're probably right. Most folks probably want that because of it's just easier.
Okay, let me clean this. I think I got.
And that would reduce, actually, a no DH league would reduce offense somewhat. In an all-time league, that could be important because we have seen offense.
So
I
let's
think be
no DH in the American. I've got 1985 fired up. No DH.
Okay.
Let's take a look here.
We can always do a poll.
Yeah. Just play a little bit while we talk and take a look. I know from past I've done some tests, but I guarantee it's going to use the average of all pitchers over time, and it's going to be something around a 140-ish batting average.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not going to be since they didn't have any at bats. It's going to do they're going to bat nothing. It'll be fairly realistic. So yeah,
Good.
the game could handle that, and that's what I thought about if we did it this way. Because if I get somebody, hold on a second, keep them entertained, Clue, while I handle an emergency call.
Yeah. No, I'm sure guys like George Yule, Wes Farrell, Walter Johnson, help me out here, other good hitting pitcher, Bob Lemon, their stock would go up in the draft in a league that does not have the DH. Versus guys would be far less inclined to to have four left fielders if they can't bat one of them full time in the lineup without a fielding position. Yeah, Smokey Joe Wood. Yeah, that's another one. I'm sorry, I forgot. Sorry. Yeah, quite a few guys among the greatest hitting pitchers who aren't terribly famous with the casual baseball fans. So. Yeah, the junior circuit. Yeah, I like that idea. We could do one of each. Let's see what people think. You're right. Doing it at least in our thing, it really doesn't matter. It's not real life, and it only lasts for a couple of weeks. So people prefer if we do things one way, and people say, "Oh, we prefer it a different way." We just switch it up. So we want to get the largest, number of people in the community involved and have everybody having fun, and whatever's going to help facilitate that is what we're looking to do. You'll be the only one in the league. So what do people think? I think I saw Dwayne chime in. You guys like the idea of getting two random years where one of them comes, or two random teams per year, where one of them comes from your reserved franchise, if you do reserve a franchise or not. We're just trying to keep flexibility as a main principle here. Steve simming the 1985 baseball season with the National League having no DH and the American League having a DH.
I'm back, Clue. Thanks for covering for me. I know you were providing some insightful info.
The one truth, Faith. Yeah. I recall poll after poll about the DH in the last 20 years. People were pretty evenly split in most of the polls I saw about whether pro DH or anti DH, and it 90+% of it depended on very much on which league you were a fan of, who your favorite team was. However, while there was no consensus overall one way or the other, overwhelmingly poll after poll had 75-80% or higher of fans say they wanted both leagues to play by one set of the same set of rules, which is why I that's more than anything, that's what won me over to the pro DH argument, because it wasn't going away, and before they decided to do it, adding X number of 15 more jobs in the National League, basically for veteran hitters. That's something that the owners could have used to their advantage in CBA negotiations, because the union was all for it. The union wanted both leagues to do DH for forever. So I think it has a lot to do with, just like your stance on the issue, though, has more to do with when you grew up and what team you root for. Just like religion or politics, most people's religion or politics is what it was in their household when they were young. So if you grew up as a fan of a National League team, you probably didn't want the DH. If you were an AL fan and they had the DH, you were probably, a thing. I'm sure people who were American League fans in the 70s were not nearly as fond of the DH as American League fans in the 90s and 2000s were.
Hey,
So
Dwayne's bringing up a good point. So, and you're talking about something that we can discuss, like for those in the league, right? To figure out, do we kind of maybe, do we have it separated? But Dwayne's bringing up a good point. Hey, and I'm going to just put this question in there. Dwayne's saying, hey, I like the one random year team, but I would also like to have just I'm sorry, would like to keep the one and then go with the random team. Well, let me say this the easiest way. Do we just rip the damn Band-Aid off, and do we go to what your ultimate goal was, Clue? Is the group in need of another baby step with the one franchise approach and the random year and team, or do we just rip the Band-Aid off and say, hey, let's just do it?
that's up to everybody else. Again, I just want to get I want as many people who would be willing to give this a try to give it a try. So,
and maybe it isn't as complex as we think, and it is the simpler of the two. Now that I think about it, it's like, hey, don't worry about your franchise, and you can pick from this franchise or a random one. Just say, hey, everybody gets each round a random year and team, and that adds such unique variety and challenge, and we just roll with that.
well, if we did jump straight to that, and I'm fine with that, because I was fine with that this last time. If we do jump straight to that, then this is my opinion, I don't think we should do keepers from Shanks
Correct.
3,
It's a
because
complete.
they're all from one franchise. Yeah.
Those of it, let's everybody know what everybody thinks. I know Beatles prefers that too.
Yeah.
I think this may be the way to go, because even Lenges is talking about, okay, now we're getting into that complexity level. Let's just say, hey,
Yeah.
now that we've got interest in the community, let's get all the people in, and you're going to get it every round. You will be given a team and a year for that team, and that's where
random.
you got to go and pull up Baseball Reference and go pull from. This is going to be great variety.
Yeah. Now that ultimate
Todd P
end.
saying Wally Bachman's coming back. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we might have to rename it the Wally Backman League.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but that way it's the ultimate bingo draft or whatever you want to call it. But now doing that, I'd be okay with even I don't know, with an even more generous number of keepers from year to year, because what are the odds that somebody's really going to want to keep that many players?
Yeah. And I think our original thought was if we open it up so it's just completely random and people get these years, then we could do like maybe, 5 keepers or whatever, or
Yeah,
but and use that subsequent year rule. But I agree with you. This is going to spread out the talent on the teams, meaning you may see some more marginal, just good players versus the great and the Hall of Famers that are holding down key positions on our team that we don't see now.
yeah, that's true. I mean, frankly, the best um, best reason to pull off the Band-Aid and just skip the reserve franchise thing and go straight to the end goal is it screws MV over.
Oh yeah, I've been
Well,
setting him up for
let
that.
me rephrase. Let me rephrase that. It saves our good friend the agony of deciding which franchise to keep.
Yes, and we're all
So,
about trying to bring relief to MV. But I
yeah,
brought that up to him when I was speaking to him last night. I think last night I was typing him when he was doing his cricket thing. That I think it's just really cool to wait and get that random year and team. It
I
makes it
agree.
easy for everybody, and it's going to give us a pool that looks more like real teams did, meaning they're not going to be stacked Hall of Fame teams and things like that.
Yeah. So one comment and then one question for everybody. The comment is um, the original plan for this in goal was that when you were drafting 30 player teams, so you have plenty of players for injury and this not whatnot, you would never get the same year twice in the draft, and you would never. This is you, the individual doing the drafting. You would never get the same year twice in the draft, and you would never get the same franchise twice in the draft. So that really spreads out the pools or compartmentalizes the pools from which you'd be drafting. So if you want two guys from I don't know 1968, too bad. Get the one you can get when you have a chance.
Hmm.
You want a lot of Cardinals, too bad. Get the one you want when you get a chance, because there won't be another opportunity for that. So that also helps push some tactical decision making, I guess, is the way, or a strategy
Hmm.
when it comes to your draft, and thinking about, well, if I don't take so and so now, later on, well, the odds are you'll never see the guy later on, unless he played for a lot of different teams, maybe in the draft.
Todd's
So,
Todd's not in MV's camp, according to his last comment. So we know where Todd stands. We know where he
we can
stands.
MV. Yeah, yeah, no player sales for MV.
And
Oh,
I
bless
agree.
his
So
heart.
Legends is like me. I have no interest in the pitcher batting. So if the group decided, hey, let's all do the same, I think it's DH, because even the people didn't want to DH. As soon as we get about 4 or 5 rounds into the draft, this always happens. Somebody goes, "Oh my God, I got 3 first basemen. I got Greenberg and
Yeah,
Gehrig here. I need a DH spot, right?" And it always happens. But if there's some hardcore people that wanted, then I'm not opposed to, if there's enough people that just want to play, then we could split. If there's 8 here and 8 there, and then
yeah.
let them do their thing. I'm
I'm
okay with
sorry.
that. But
Did you call them hard corn people?
yeah, these
You
hard
mean like hard
um,
corn, like Ken?
yeah. And
Ken
I know
and Beatles?
Legends does this with his things too. Wasting a spot like in an all-time lineup, it doesn't, because you don't get to see people. So the style of baseball, does that matter to you when we're not going to be playing 162 games where your strategy comes into play, right? At the same
Yeah.
time, you're not going to get to see the benefit of having, a Ted Williams, uh, who's not a great
Yeah.
fielder or
See,
whatever.
that's For me, I mean, this is my perfect example just from playing when I was younger in Sims where they had all time teams. I would put a team together, and I'd have Barry Bonds as my left fielder and Ted Williams as my DH. Otherwise, I had to choose between them.
Yes.
Yeah, and when of course, when you're playing by yourself on your computer and you go, "Oh, I'm just gonna stack my team with Willie Mays and,
Yeah.
Walter Johnson," every great player I like, I like both of those guys, but only one of them could play left field at one time, and so I was like, "No, no, I'm going with the DH." That was the only reason I did that at the in those types of games. Um, Here's a question then. Is APC capable of doing this? Could any team choose at a team level to have the DH or not the DH, or is
No,
that
league.
only
It's league.
league?
It's at league. So we would have to
Okay.
set it up in a separate division, which like this sim I'm doing for 85, you'll notice it has an AL side and a DL side, and
Yeah.
I turned it off. So yeah, it has to be league specific. It can't be team specific.
Yeah. In if interleague play, oh God, yeah, Beatles must really hate the DH if he'd rather have
Oh,
interleague
you
play
haven't
than
missed
that.
anything, MV. We're just throwing some ideas, but I'm running a sim here to see just so people can know. If you, for example, have a pitcher that didn't have real at bats, what's the game going to do with him? And this is for people that have brought the question of having no DH, and but yet let's say you draft Nolan Ryan in 1976, and that's your pitcher for the Angels. What will it do? So I took 1985. I unchecked the DH, and I'm running a sim with the 85 season to see how the AL pitchers do, because the game will apply historical pitching line averages so that they don't end up with goose eggs, because that would put you at a disadvantage. But yeah, I don't agree. I'm like Legends and you in a league like this. I don't see the appeal. Now, if we were playing head to head and managing,
Yeah, different story.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
I would feel like, yeah, tactically in the game. I think that's what draws people to that style of ball, having to figure out whether you pinch, hit for a pitcher and do all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff and double swaps and all that. But I don't. I mean, in an all-time league, do I care how Tommy Bridges bats? No.
No. Hey, another great hitter as a pitcher. I forgot about that. Yeah, he wasn't bad at all with the bat. Oh my gosh. Um, the other thing we haven't touched on, and this is something we did in Shanks One, particularly with Beatles and Legends in here, but everybody else, I'd love to hear what you guys think. In the draft, then, should we limit the number of Hall of Fame players that a team can draft?
I will go first and say no. If we use the ultimate approach of everybody gets a random team and year, I would say no, because that adds its own uniqueness to it.
Yeah, I tend to think that alone will reduce the. It's not that they're in the Hall of Fame, it's that it's less likely you're going to get a player's greatest season or second greatest season or
And
third greatest.
I'll throw it out this way. Let's say I've got 7 Hall of Famers, Frankie
Yeah,
Frisch, Paul Wainer, but it's not their best years. And I've
yeah,
got Dwight Gooden, and compare that. Like you could have 7, and then I've got none, but I got Dwight Gooden, Mike
yeah.
Scott the right years, Norm Cash in 61. I could have far better non-Hall of Famers because you got to remember we're not looking at their entirety.
That's
We're
cool.
looking at single season snapshots.
Yeah,
That
and forget that not all Hall of Famers are created equal, right? Half the guys in the Hall of
Oh
Fame aren't
yeah.
anywhere close to say Willie Mays.
Yeah.
I don't want to denigrate anybody's favorite
So
Hall of
so so if
Famers.
I get Harold Baines in the White Sox and I get a decent year for him, and having to have that count against me as a Hall of Famer just doesn't make sense. It doesn't seem worthy.
Yeah, there's plenty of guys in the Hall of Fame that, with all due respect, I would hope I have a better non-Hall of Fame player than. than that guy. I don't want to have to be stuck with Rick Farrell as my starting catcher. I don't
Yes.
want to be stuck with High Pockets Kelly as my starting first baseman. I'd shoot myself. So, I
Yeah.
mean, these are guys I've
Uh,
spent 30 years complaining about them being in the Hall of Fame. If that's the best player I have at the position, I don't have a team I'm going to be
yeah,
cheering for a whole lot.
exactly. No
So
doubt.
I could hire MV to be my team cheerleader since he's so good at that with the unfit
Well, now
flagging
Beatles is
option.
getting even more restrictive. Now there's no Hall of Famers allowed.
I actually I personally would find that even more fun because you're going to learn about a whole lot more players
Yeah.
than how did Juan Marichal and Sandy Koufax do this time. Yeah, that's I don't have a problem with that, but again, I don't want people to lose interest, in the league if there's
Yeah,
players they don't
I personally
recognize.
I like ripping the band-aid off and saying, hey, you're going to get a random year in team, and that's your kind of your tunnel visioned in on that team and that year to draw from. But other than that, I don't know if there's any other restrictions that make that I'm
MV
for.
MV just put the nail in the coffin.
Yeah. Yeah, and how sad now Carol Bands doesn't get represented. We dog the poor guy all the time. Now he can't even get represented.
Yeah.
I'm moving our way through September here because I am interested to see these AL pitchers in 85, how the 85 season comes out with pitchers having to bat.
Yeah. But I mean, let's say Baines wasn't in the Hall of Fame. Is his best year any better than Lonnie Smith or Kirk Gibson
No.
or Daryl Star? Not even close to some of those guys. Or Reggie Sanders. I'm trying to think of David Justice, other right fielders, or from roughly that era. I don't think so. Ken Singleton. So you've got those guys grow on trees. They're a dime a dozen. And I think that's the thing. The quality of forget the names, and the names we recognize versus those that are less well known. But the quality of seasons when you're taking away, that second tier, third tier of good players, those things are much more common than people realize. 40,
Mhm.
40 homer season is much more common than people realize. They don't strictly apply to Hall of Famers.
Yep.
Hall of Famers aren't the only guys that have 40 home run
No,
seasons.
and it's almost like we keep viewing Hall of Famers like there's something special, since we're looking at single season
Yeah, very
snippets that we're
different.
grabbing, to me they're really all the same. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Dwayne makes a good point. Yeah, there's lots of great all-time great seasons that weren't done by Hall of Famers or guys who should be in the Hall. So yeah. Yep, yep,
Yeah,
yep.
and Todd's
Lou
making a good
Whitaker.
point there. He never wants to take away the possibility in his games. Yep. And I know for those that didn't have but I'm interested to see. I'm getting close here, another week, and we can peek into this. I've never done this test recently. I want to say 10 plus years ago. I think a bunch of us that were looking at another league that when we were doing an all-time file, we wondered how they would perform, and we did some tests like this, but it's been a long time since I've actually looked to see what you know a full season would
Yeah,
show for. Like, we'll see what Jack Morris would have hit here in 1985 or Clemens. But
Jack
it looks like
Morris.
Toronto, and look, you're seeing that was a very competitive back here during this time, right? In the East, Detroit,
Yeah,
Toronto, New York, Boston, Baltimore, all of them competitive in 85. And this is
yeah.
with no DH.
Jack Morris could hit like Ty Cobb, and his ERA would still be higher than his batting average.
He could.
That just it blow that whole yeah. Jack Morris was to me the pitching equivalent of Harold Baines, but that's
Yeah, I think he gets a
all.
little bit of consideration because of the park effect. Um, they kind of just let him grind it out. Yeah, you've
Yeah.
never heard me say, yeah, I've never
Oh
lobbied.
no, no,
I
yeah.
lobby. I think Trammell and Whitaker are much more viable candidates in my entire life as a Tiger fan than Morris.
Yeah.
But
Well, forget that. You rooted for the team in those years. Would you have rather had Jack Morris or Dave Stieb as your ace?
that's a pretty equal argument, actually.
I don't think so at all.
But
Steve missed out on a couple of deserved Cy Young
I
awards.
I would go with Morris only because I got to see him more, and yeah. Okay, let's take a peek in here. No DH. No
Ghost
runners.
runners, MV.
Let's take a look.
We'll put you on the ineligible list if you suggest it again.
1985, no DH. Look at this. Toronto gets the tiebreaker, evidently Detroit, Boston. Let's take a look at Detroit pitchers.
Tosser.
Replay stats.
No respect for MV. Bless his heart. Do they have?
Here you go. Dan Petrie got 84 at bats, a full season's worth of at bats, batted 131.
Okay.
Jack
Yeah,
Morris,
pretty standard.
114.
Yeah.
Just under 100 for Terrell. Tanana, Willie Hernandez. Okay, small sample size. So yeah, it's got a built-in where I think you'll see them average right around that 130 to 140, whatever it is, batting average that they have.
That's fantastic.
Let's go take a peek at Boston.
I'm fine doing a one league with and one league without. I just wonder how we do it if we only have one team. Mudville is the only team in the non-DH league.
Yeah, and here's yeah, exactly. I mean, I think we'll just have to wait and see those that get in the league. If somebody wants to just be in a league and they just have pitchers batting, then knock themselves out,
Yeah.
right? And then I ain't going to enter a league with them. The hell with that. I don't even want to play them until we have to face them in the. We'll see. But I think
this is all just a clever ploy by Beatles to get his team in the playoffs.
Well, you'll see what slowly happened. Then Beatles is going to have it. We'll get the eras down to where it was all when pitchers bat. Then slowly we're going to be in the dead ball. Before you know it, we're going to have a whole Shanks version, dead ball specific.
Oh my gosh, that's too funny.
Oh boy, no, this is so. Yeah, as you can see, the game will apply what they call historical numbers here. So here's Clemens. You got 49 at bats. Who else we got here?
Christopher's in the chat watching a broadcast named after me. That's right.
Yeah, and you know, Chris, now that you got off, we've merged over into talking about our other stuff here.
Baseball,
but
yeah.
And he's watching Rugby World Cup. That's where he had to leave earlier from this broadcast and head over to meet a friend from South Africa to watch that. So
no clocks, no Joe Buck. I'm on board with that, Beatles.
Well, it's been fun, gentlemen. I think we've got a lot of good ideas going in. I agree. We just ripped the Band-Aid off and we say, the heck with these franchises. It was a baby step. Clue the whole time has tried to kind of move towards this idea of having just every round you get a random year and team and go for it. Let's go draft. And
it's Todd's idea times infinity. Everything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, this was the original Todd idea,
yeah.
but I think Clue's done a lot of work to maneuver it, and then he's also done a lot of work on the background to figure out how to assign all that. The nuts and bolts that make the draft go smooth is his passion. I don't know if he'd say it's his passion. It's a chore, but it's a passion too. He enjoys doing that. Otherwise, you'd have just left and we'd have never heard from you. So when is the next draft? Let's. What did MV? I think MV declared that it has to happen.
I think the only ghost runners. in this community are the women that date World's Worst Gamer. They ghost run on them.
World's Worst has been. We haven't seen him or Wartburg. I don't
Yeah,
know
he's
if
been absent for a few days.
they're shooting flares off somewhere or
Robbie's
what.
busy at work watching his team playoff hopes go down the tube in the last month of the
Oh my
season.
gosh, yeah, fun stuff. Well, we've got at least, I would say, in the next couple of weeks, I think we need to give it a week to two of getting some interest on all the broadcast people that are broadcasting, just reminding people, hey, are you interested? Do you want to partake in this? So that we can really
Yeah,
get a good accounting of that and then pick a night that works the best. And again, if you can't make, I think we could do this like we have over 2 nights, like about a 3 hour and a 2 hour
yeah,
broadcast to get the entire draft done. And we've had people that couldn't make one and said, hey, I've got to leave now. And then Clue has an ingenious way to have a list ready for them so they can still catch up at their leisure. And here's a list of their teams and players that they've got to, or teams and years that they have to choose players from. He is fine if you do the draft early October when he is on holiday. Oh gosh, and I'm going to be out of town the 3rd to the 6th of October.
Well, here I was going to suggest 2 weeks from this weekend, possibly. What would that be?
Yeah, the end of September. That would be fine.
Yeah, so that's
What,
like
the
the
24th,
23rd and
23rd,
24th, yeah,
24th?
whatever
Yeah,
day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever day that would work best for you.
I agree.
Yeah.
Let's
So we don't want to put
shoot for that.
put it off another month. So
And he does it. Yeah, let's get it done. We're definitely going to get it done before the end of September. And let's
yeah.
shoot for 2 weeks from now. Like, let's say 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th-ish time frame right now. Temporarily we commit to that. Oh my gosh.
MV, you should tie yourself down.
He's flying off to the Caribbean.
Oh, is it?
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's perfect. So no, this will be good. So yeah, more to come on that. I'll talk more about it when I'm broadcasting. I know Beatles can talk about that 22nd to 24th-ish time frame to shoot for the draft. And now it's just a matter of on Discord, whether it's mine at Baseball Geek Squad or Beatles at the McGreevy, making sure that people want to participate have access to that so that there's a good way to account for them and communicate that. I think that's the key.
Beatles, when are you planning on starting the next round of McGreevy? Do you have a time frame in mind yet?
Oh, and look at MV. Isn't he repeating champ over there?
Give me time to oil my Red Bolt machine. You
Oh,
need to go back and
gosh.
listen to this.
Oh yeah. Get your polish out. Get your polish
get your box of tissues. Yeah. Oh man.
Well, it's been fun.
Right.
Thanks for hopping on, Clue. I'm gonna go get ready to watch some F-ball. Oh, I can say.
All right.
You see, Beatles has given me permission, and everybody can use the word football.
Yeah.
He's
I'm partial to Beatles' way of thinking, so.
Well, here is thanking everybody that was here today. And usually we go through and thank everybody. I just don't have the energy. Is that wrong?
Yeah. Well, big thanks to Christopher.
Huge.
Fantastic listening to him and you talk earlier.
Chris is and what's interesting is each person, each name sparks a memory and an actual instance for him when he starts looking at all of the players' names and his familiarity with the Pennsylvania players specifically, and the towns they're from, and the high schools, and some of the stories that go along with it. That's just great. So
yeah, that reminds me. We'll do some other time off the air, Steve. But remind me later. I've got a couple of Chris Collinsworth stories for you. He's from my neck of the woods. And,
nice.
I've met him multiple times, and I know quite a few people who know him really well. Not my favorite announcer either.
Yeah, I'm just talking about his announcing. I don't know him as a human, any charity work he does, or odd job, nothing like that. I'm just like, It has nothing to do with
His
my team.
announcing may
Yeah.
be the most exceptional part of him.
Oh, okay.
So,
Good to know. Um,
yeah.
no, appreciate everybody coming in, and Mr. Slovick, great having you on, and we'll do some more of that. And I want to look at trying to expand that to where we can get more people doing some of these chats on different projects and all that good stuff. But there's good stuff today. I don't know who else. I'll give it a minute here. Who else is going to be broadcasting today? Dwayne got stuff coming on. Legends has got season 2 going um, on his. So if anybody wants to pop in the chat here anything they've got coming up on the schedule today, because I do find myself now, I put it on, I'm like, fire up YouTube, and then I get disappointed. I'm like, oh, there's nobody broadcasting live. Oh crap. So I'll go back and watch something I've missed. So Beatles is going to do a 49 Dodgers game in Baseball for Windows. Oh, those are always great for
Awesome.
I call it like it's like the ambiance for chatting. I'll go over there, and we can listen to Ernie call a game, and then everybody kind of chat and in that. But I'll definitely hop on that. But appreciate everybody joining. I think we ripped the Band-Aid off. Clue. We can figure out DH in this half, non-DH later. But I
Yeah.
like the idea. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Everybody starts clean. Everybody's going to get a random year and team. You got to go focus and draft from that. And we'll take that approach into Shanks 4. And I have no doubt it'll be a blast.
Yeah. Steve, thanks again, sir. Thanks everybody for being in the chat. Hope you have a great day. See you all over at Beatles channel or somewhere else.
You got it, Clue. Thanks for hopping on. And big thanks to Big Clue for coming in here. Let me scroll through this chat. We've had quite a few people. We've even hit the teens on a few occasions until people find out they've wandered into God knows what, and then they hit the exit button fast. But MV, Ken Castro's shown up, Dwayne Martz. Who else we got? Big Clue, of course. Mr. Slovick was here early. If you haven't had a chance, go back and watch it from the beginning where he's outlining this football birth state project he's got me into. Always great talking to him, and he's got a lot of good insight into how he's going to run this with the pool approach, and then going on into tournament format after that. So that project won't be kicking off until January at some time, but that'll be fun. Beatles was here. Todd B. Who else am I missing as I scroll back through here? Had a lot of folks here. Not sure. I want to miss everybody that. Don't want to miss anybody that typed in the chat. Legends, of course. Arnold was one of the first to hop in this morning. Don't know if Arnold's still hanging out there, but big thanks to Arnold for hopping on. He would get the Bobby or the Robbie Wartburg bobblehead if we had one. Those have been discontinued based on popular demand, so we don't have any of those available anymore. So again, thanks everybody for joining me. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you on a future broadcast somewhere. And let's hop on over and watch Beatles do a Baseball for Windows. Hear a little Ernie Harwell. Thanks for tuning in.